So, so, good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. D. Alil Raja, Associate Professor in Department of Mechanical Engineering, St. Joseph Institute of Technology. On behalf of our department, I welcome all the participants for the day two online FDP on recent advances in material science from various institutions all over India. And also, I welcome Dr. T.P.D. Rajan, Senior Principal Scientist, CSIR, Trivandrum. I hope all the participants will enjoy these sessions. Now, I request Dr. Crispin Das to introduce our chief guest.
Thank you, sir. So, good morning, everyone, and I welcome you once again, all the participants from various colleges and various institutions all over India. So, I'm very happy to introduce the chief guest of the day, Dr. T.P.D. Rajan, who is the Senior Principal Scientist, Material Science and Technology Division, and is the Chairman of Academic Program Committee, CSIR, that is National Institute for Interdisciplinary Science and Technology, Trivandrum. So, Dr. Rajan has completed his MTech in National Institute of Technology, Mangalore, in Metallurgical Engineering. He has completed his PhD in CSIR Trivandrum in Metallurgical and Materials Engineering. So, coming to his experience, he's a senior. He has worked as a senior research fellow from September 1996 to March 2000, and after that, research associate from April 2000 to January 2003, and he has worked as a principal investigator from January 2003 to April 2005, and he has worked as scientist from April 2005 till April 2009, and then senior scientist from April 2009 to April 2013. And from April 2013 till April 2018, he has worked as a principal scientist in CSIR. And since April 2018, he has been working as a senior principal scientist in CSIR. He has a very vast research experience, publications, patents, and he has attained various awards, honors, and distinctions. Also, he has various membership in various professional societies, and he is very active member of the professional related activities. So he has contributed various journals in research. Also, he has been guiding various peoples and various students of various institutions. We are very happy to have a chief guest like Dr. Rajan sir. Even though he is very busy with his schedule, he has accepted our invitation and give and deliver his speech in material science. We welcome you, sir, for this session. I hope all the participants will enjoy this session, and over you to Sir Rajan, sir. Thank you.
So, good morning to all. Thank you very much, Dr. Crispin Das, for the brief introduction and also inviting me to give a lecture on this FDP program of recent advances in material science. I'm also thankful to Alil Raja and all the faculty of St. Joseph's College, Chennai. And I also welcome all the participants for this program.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Just I will share my slide, please wait. Dr. Crispin, can you see the slides?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. It's
okay,
visible.
thank you. Then I will start. So, today is the second day of this faculty development program on recent advances in material science. And I will be talking on advanced materials for lightweighting of automotive and aerospace systems. Since we at CSIR NIST, we are working in the areas of lightweight metallic materials. So I thought this topic may be suitable and relevant to the people in the Department of Mechanical Engineering and the faculties of Mechanical Engineering, because it's so both interfacing the material systems to materials to the automotive and aerospace systems. So usually I used to give a brief introduction about CSIR NIST and CSIR before going to my talk. So there I will start with a brief introduction to the CSIR. And maybe some of the participants may know about CSIR and their labs and programs, but to briefly introduce some of the new participants. CSIR is Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, which is a premier industrial organization of India, which is constituted in 1942, that is prior to the independence. And this is mainly to provide the value addition of local resources, as well as to develop technology relevant to the Indian atmosphere. And if you see this CSIR system, similar system is there in many of the countries because normally big corporate industries have their own R&D setup, but normally the medium, small and micro enterprises not have the technology setup, as well as when there are some crises, just like this health crisis and other things. So we have to have technology related to the medicines, or diagnostic tools, personal protective equipments, and so on. So we have in this line in India, we have CSIR, ICMR, ICAR for agriculture, and many other labs. And specifically to strategic areas, we have ISRO, DRDO, and BRNS. So we can see that for catering. But as a CSIR, it caters the wide variety of industries, both strategic and societal sectors. And some of the remarkable developments what CSIR has contributed is mainly in the area of aerospace engineering and more on pharmaceutical sectors. A lot of generic drugs, the methodologies have been developed in early periods. Similarly, when we enter the go for voting, the indelible ink which is put on the finger is developed by the CSIR NPL Delhi in 1960s. So, and now it is almost been used in more than 65 to 70 countries throughout the world with the same technology, and very old technology, and it's now transferred to a company in Karnataka, and they are producing and selling in India as well as exporting throughout the world. So similarly, Amul and many drugs are there, and they also support to strategic organizations just like ISRO, DRDO, and BRNS also. And if you see the mission statement of CSIR, CSIR provides scientific and industrial research and development that maximizes the economy, environmental, and social benefit for the people of India. And CSIR also provides fellowships to the students, those who are pursuing for their PhD programs. It is for both science and engineering. And for science students, they conduct a CSIR Junior Research Fellowship examinations twice in a year. And once they qualify the Junior Research Fellowship, they are provided fellowship for 5 years with almost 31,000 plus HRA, maybe around 35,000 will be coming. And for engineering students, mostly after their post-graduation, they can apply directly for CSIR Senior Research Fellowship. And once they get the fellowship, they can work in any of the institutes, universities, colleges, IITs, NITs, IIST, and ISS. And they can do, or in any of the CSIR labs, and they can do their PhD program. And this fellowship is supported for 4 years, and the fellowship is 35,000 plus HRA, almost it comes 40 plus. So these are fellowships. These are some of the fellowships, but there are even research associateships and other fellowships are there. And CSIR also provide travel grants for the scholars to go abroad, and even faculties to go abroad and present their technical papers. And CSIR provides project funds to the faculties to establish their R&D facilities to carry out the project in the areas of both applied and basic science and engineering subjects. I think for more about these details, you can visit csir.res.in as well as the csir.hrdg.res.in websites. And if you see that almost from CSIR has all 37 labs throughout India. Maybe south we have the National Institute of Interdisciplinary Science and Technology where I am working, and at north we have Indian Institute of Integrative Medicine at Jammu. and east we have the Northeast Institute of Science and Technology, and west we have the Central Salt and Marine Research Institute. So that means throughout India we have, and these labs are mostly classified into biological, chemical, engineering, information and physical science sectors. And NIST is an interdisciplinary lab. And apart from that, towards specifically to the subjects related to materials, we have Central Electrochemical Research Institute works on materials and for mostly energy storage systems, corrosion resistant coatings. And at Chennai, we have the Central Leather Research Institute, which is not, it's mostly on leather technology, but Structural Engineering Research Institute work a lot on structures, civil structures, aeronautical and aerospace structures. And National Aerospace Lab is working purely on passenger air flights, drones, and other support systems to both space and aeronautic, just like HAL and other defense systems. And coming to specifically to materials and engineering, we have Indian Institute of Minerals and Materials Technology at Bhubaneswar, Environmental Engineering Research Institute at Nagpur, Materials Processing Research Institute at Bhopal. And for mechanical engineering, we have Central Mechanical Engineering Research Institute at Durgapur, which works on equipments, designs, robotics, and various other fields. Similarly, we have Glass and Ceramics Institute at Calcutta, Road Research Institute, Building Research. These are all institutes specifically to different areas of discipline. Even for energy, we have Indian Institute of Petroleum at Dehradun. I think you can visit the CSR website and you will get link, because this may be useful for your students for their research, or maybe you can collaborate with any of the CSR labs for your research programs also. And this is CSR NIST Trivandrum. And here at NIST, we work on agro-processing and natural products, biotechnology, chemical science and technology, material science and technology, process engineering, and environmental science. And at Material Science and Technology Division, where I'm working, we work on metallic materials, composite materials, polymers, ceramics, and electronic materials. And CSR, if you see, it's an autonomous society under the Government of India, and the president of CSR is the Prime Minister, and the vice president is the Minister of Science and Technology. And we have a director general, and each lab has a director. I think with this brief introduction to the CSR, I will move to my talk, and I will start with just very fundamental basics. And here you can see that, I think engineering materials are normally classified as metals, ceramics, polymers, and composites. And composite may be a metal matrix composites, a ceramic matrix composites, or a polymer matrix composites, depending on the matrix what we are using. And if the dispersoid or the matrix grain size in the nanoscale, then it's called nanocomposite. And if it is the hybridization of two reinforcement, then it's called a hybrid composite. And if it is a functionally graded structure is there, then it is called a functionally graded composite material. So today we will see what are the lightweight metallic materials and lightweight composite which we are using for different systems. And if you see that these materials are probably more deep rooted in the culture, because whatever we see in and around is made of one or the other types of material in the macro scale. And every segment of our everyday lives is influenced to one or the other types of materials. Either it may conventional materials, or it may be advanced materials. You see transportation, maybe we develop a lot of technologies, but to visualize, to realize we need different types of materials and to convert it into useful systems. Maybe in transportation, automobile, aerospace, or even aircraft systems. Similarly, building, we have the building materials. It may be a ceramic-based materials or steel reinforced materials, or the glasses and so on. Clothing, we have fibers. Communication, we have different types of electronic materials, which is used for screens and other communications. Similarly for recreation and so on. So materials development of the field of materials is very huge, and it's and you can see how much even the early civilization we term in the name of materials: Stone Age, Bronze Age, Iron Age, Steel Age, and we are now in the new advanced material age. Sometimes people call it as a silicon age also, because IT is there. So materials form the milestones and physical basis for human civilizations. So coming specifically to the necessity of lightweighting. So we know that if you take different types of materials, for example, you take metal itself. So we have steel, which is used for building in the reinforcement concrete, or various type of steels which we use in households, for automobiles and so on. Then we have aluminum and aluminum alloys. So aluminum alloys are used. The main visual things is in home we use it for utensils and various accessories. In electrical, there is field of in electrical engineering we use for conducting material, that is for carrying the power. And in the case of automobile, we use in both engines as well as structural materials. In aircraft, we use it in a large area. So aluminum is used. And then we use titanium also. Titanium is very widely used in the aerospace sector, and also as an implant in biomedical sector, apart from the steel. And similarly, magnesium is also used for aerospace and other sectors. So we have a range of metallic systems. But normally the density of metal matters, because one of the problems with the steel and cast iron is the density is very high. So that means there is a dead weight in the systems which you develop. Maybe it's an automobile or it's an aircraft and so. So normally the people are going for advanced composite systems or advanced lightweight materials, metallic materials, just like aluminum, titanium, and magnesium, for replacing the cast iron. So the need of lightweighting is mainly because of the environmental aspect, emission, end of life vehicles, importance of fuel economy. So heavier vehicle due to luxury, safety, and electrical equipments, addition to the standard vehicles. So weight reduction is very critical for standardization. So benefits of lightweighting. So the benefits of lightweighting is lesser CO2 emissions, the CO2 emissions, because of direct weight saving, because of the lightweight materials, indirect weight saving due to downsizing of the components, lower energy demand, or so lesser fuel requirement is here. Similarly, for same power to weight ratio, saving weight allows downsizing of the powertrain components. That means weight can be shortens braking distance for same braking power constant. So you have a lot of weight savings in the case of automobiles, because mainly the fuel economy and lower carbon dioxide emission is plays a major role in the utilization of lightweight materials. You know that earlier, when maybe 20 years back, we had the Ambassador cars, which the fuel efficiency is something around 8 to 10 kilometers. But later now we have many vehicles, sedans, which has fuel efficiency more than 20 kilometers. So that means modification in the engine, weight reduction, everything has helped in increasing the fuel efficiency of the automobile. So the main approaches to energy saving and emission reduction is improvement in the automobile technology, improvement in traffic and roads, and good driving habits. And in the case of new vehicles, the energy saving in the automobiles, it is hybrid power technology, advanced power systems, and the lightweight utilization of lightweight materials. And then also we have the structural design optimization, lower friction, and better electronic control systems. Also, if you have an alternate energy, just like CNG, LNG, alcohol, and methanol, then also we can have a better energy savings in the conventional systems. So similarly, the new energy vehicles are mostly of electric vehicles and the hybrid vehicles. Also, even though they are utilizing the power, electricity, but they also require lightweighting in the case of utilization of electric vehicles. So lightweighting is required both in the conventional gasoline-based engines or on electric vehicles also. And if you see the opportunities for lightweighting, as I told, the reduced vehicle weight is the most important criteria, and mainly it comes with the lightweight materials. So lightweight material means if you are able to use high strength steel, even though the density of steel is higher, the increase in the strength of the steel can reduce the total thickness of steel. So that once we have a lesser thickness, then automatically the weight can be reduced. Or we can replace it with the aluminum and magnesium alloys, so which has a lower density. Aluminum has a density of almost around 2.68 to 7. And these aluminum alloys are very widely been replaced in structural parts. And even the engine also, earlier people were using the cast iron and other components in the engine, but now you know that all aluminum engine cars and even most of the components have been replaced by aluminum lightweight engineering, because even in the engines also, wherever the high temperature exposure is, they normally give some type of ceramic or high oxidation resistant coatings so that even the light alloys can withstand. So apart from the engine, so we in the structural parts, the unreinforced and reinforced plastics are being used. And in the case of structural lightweight construction, new structures and complex geometries are being made. You know that laminated and hybrid composite systems, multi-material means you have two materials in a single component, maybe steel and aluminum, steel and composites, just like a laminated structures construction can be made. And similarly, the optimizing the production process, light joining techniques, new manufacturing process, just like hydroforming. So these all can be integrated to reduce the vehicle weight by utilization of lightweight, metallic, and composite materials. And so, in the case of lightweight materials, specifically to composites, the polymer matrix composites are very widely used. If you see that automobile dashboards, door panels, and even glass fiber reinforced plastic air intake manifold are being used. So engine with sheet molding component are used in oil sump and valve covers and so on. So here, mostly the polymer matrix composites are very widely used in the structural or body covers and so on. And metallic and ceramic composites are being used in lesser extent in the engine components. But a lot of developments are going on. And if you see in general, the concept of composite materials, it's really a boon to the engineering materials. And by definition, a composite is a homogeneous mixture of two or more materials with distinct interface prepared in an engineering way. And the bulk, you know that bulk phase of a composite is the matrix, and the other phase is called the reinforcement on the fillers. So hence the property of the composite is some of the properties of both the matrix and the reinforcement, and in most of the cases it is a synergetic effect. And in the case of nature, also we have the wood, which is a cellulose fibers dispersed in a lignin matrix. So wood is a well-known natural composite. Similarly, the bone in our body is a natural composite where you have a hydroxyapatite particles dispersed in a collagen matrix. So people have started using the wood even very long. That means during the early civilization itself. So, which is very widely used, one of the natural composite materials. But if you see the synthetic or man-made composite, we have the carbon and glass fiber reinforced plastic, which is used as a composite materials. So this is a cross-section of a wood, and this is a cross-section of a bone. I think in the coming slides, I will explain how the properties and strength is important in those natural materials. So this is a glass fiber reinforced, and this is a carbon epoxy fiber reinforced composites. And you know, you can see these trees can withstand heavy wind blows. And this is because in trees, as I had mentioned the earlier slide, it is cellulose fibers in a lignin matrix. And all these trees have a very strong fibers. If you cut the cross section of the tree and see, there are longitudinal oriented fibers. And these fibers really gives the strength to the tree and any plant, so that it is not easily broken down even by the strong winds. But once the winds exceeds, then it cannot withstand. But that's why normally if you take a normal stick, and we never try to break the stick by pulling apart, that means from the two ends, because the reason is that longitudinal direction has very high strength because of the orientation of the fibers in the direction. But when we want to, we used to bend it and break it. So if you are bending from both the sides, then definitely it's easy to break, because the transverse direction of the fiber is of the composite of the tree is very weak. So breaking is very easier in the transverse direction than the longitudinal direction. And in the case of composite materials, we can see that polymer, metal, and ceramics are being the most widely used systems. And in this case, reinforcements used are mostly ceramic fibers, viscous, and particulates forms, of which possess very high strength, stiffness, and stability. And polymer composites are well developed, and metallic and ceramic composites are being developed and for specific uses. And the case of utilization of hybrid composite, that is by more than one type of reinforcement, which is called a second generation composite, is being developed. A lot of research is going on in this directions. And the newer systems are mainly on functionally graded and smart composite systems. And coming to the various types of matrices used in the composite, we can see that plastics, polyesters, epoxies, phenolics, and polyimides are the very widely commonly used thermosetting polymers. And in the case of thermoplastic polymers, we have the nylon, polyethylene, polystyrene, polypropylene, PMMA, and so on for as a thermoplastics. So we have a wide range of polymeric matrix which can be used to make the composites. However, epoxies, polyesters, phenolics are very commonly used composites to matrices for making the polymer composites. And in the case of metals also, we have steel, iron, aluminum, zinc, copper, nickel, silver, titanium, magnesium, and various types of superalloys and so on. However, aluminum, nickel, titanium, magnesium is very widely used as the matrix materials. But as a individual metal, we use steel and iron to a larger extent for building and various other construction purpose. And the case of ceramics, we have the aluminum oxide, silica, beryllium oxide, boron, graphite, silicon carbide, silicon nitride. So you have oxides, carbides, and nitrides of various metals which forms ceramics. So we can see that matrices very vast or different types of matrices are there which can choose for required applications. So this is a typical example of composite light weighting of composite power systems. So you know that this is a wind turbine, and very commonly we can see in the Kaval Kinar and other stretches of Tamil Nadu where a lot of windmills are there. And you can, if you see as from long up, it seems to be a smaller in size. But if you see really, it is very lengthy. That means it's huge in length, maybe from 40 to 60 meters in length, which is found. But one of the problem is if the wind has to rotate this wind turbine blades, then the light weight is required. So you cannot have a solid steel or aluminum. You can put it and make a blade. So normally what they make is they make a hollow blade like this with the reinforcement of fibers. So mostly it is a polyester or epoxy reinforced glass fiber reinforced composite, and sometimes they use hybridization of carbon also. So glass fiber. So the main advantage is that this unidirectionally fiber reinforced composite has very high strength and low density. That's why they use in the wind turbine plant. So this is one of the typical example of utilization of lightweight composite structures in the wind energy sectors. And we see the development of various types of composites. The development of composites is there for many years, and since 200 BC, the reinforced clay-like deposits of Nile Valley with grass plant fibers have been used in temple walls and tombs in Egypt by the Egyptians. And even the Han's dynasty in China, they had used this type of straw reinforced bricks in the watchtowers of Western Great Wall of China. And in 1500 BC, the laminated wood furniture has been used by Egyptians. And 1200 AD, Mongolians has used the bows, which is adhesively bonded with laminates of horns of buffaloes and antelopes. And the ancient Chinese also used this wire reinforced ceramics. So these are some of the very old examples of man-made composite systems. Recently, in the early 20th century, the people have started utilization of the phenolic resin asbestos. That means asbestos is a mineral fiber and which is dispersed in a phenolic matrix resin, and it has been used for various applications. And in 1942, the first fiber glass boat has been used, and fiber reinforced plastics are used in aircraft and electrical components. In 1946 to 50, the invention of filament binding process has led to the utilization of filament bound structures for the missile applications. And in late 90s, the development of and introduction of boron fibers and high strength carbon fibers had taken place. So if we see for the development of a successful composites, we require a very good matrix and we require very high strength and high performing reinforcement also. So the development of these continuous fibers is also very critical. So once the fiber development has come, then they had started utilizing these fibers in advanced composites in aircraft in 1960s. And in 1970s, the Kevlar fiber has been developed and introduction of MMCs has taken place. And in 1980s, significant increase in utilization of high strength and high modulus fibers had been made. And in 1990s onwards, newer MMC, CMC, bio and nano composites had been introduced, and discovery of CNDs has led to the utilization of CND dispersed composites for both supercapacitors and other applications. So now a lot of nano composites are being developed and used for a wide variety of applications. And coming specifically to the lightweighting in the aircraft, so still we had seen the lightweighting criteria in the automobile sectors, the importance of composites. And now coming to the aircrafts, so here we can see that initially when the 747 aircraft is there, that's Boeing, they had used almost 81% of material is made of aluminum. So because aluminum is a lightweight materials, and 13% is steel, and almost 4% is titanium, and only 1% is composite is used, and miscellaneous is 1%. So later, slowly, they started using this utilization of steel is there, but slightly the increase in composite has taken place. So that means composite structures from 1 to 3 weight percentage. Then there is in 767 aircrafts, and again in 757 it was again 3%, but in 777 it is almost 11%, and in 787 recent types of aircraft it's almost 50% is made utilized is the composite materials. Composite means different types of laminated, polymer, and all types of composite comes. But parallelly, what has happened is the utilization of aluminum alloys from 81 to 80, 78, 70, and it has come to 20%. So one material is replaced by another. But still, some of the high temperature required region and other places you cannot replace completely with the composites. So they still use aluminum, the steel, the titanium, and even other various types of materials in the aircraft. So here you can see that the materials which is used in the 787 is fiberglass reinforced composites, and where it is used actually, the whole structural body is mostly made of carbon laminated composites, and some other places are the carbon sandwich composites. So you can see what are the types of fiberglass reinforced composite, carbon laminate composite, and carbon sandwich composite materials are used. Apart from that, in some of the regions you can see that aluminum, steel, titanium, and all is used as some edge region. They use purely the aluminum. I think when you travel next time by the aircraft, you can just closely watch the regions where these composite materials are used. I think this percentage I had already mentioned earlier. So what is the motivation for the utilization of these structural materials? That means, as I mentioned, there I was telling only the examples of Boeing. But here you can see that from even other Airbus industries and other places also, A300, A310, A340, A330, and A380, all they had started increasing the usage of composite, polymer reinforced composite or laminated composites in their applications. So mainly the high specific strength and stiffness, reduction in the part weight, and the multifunctionality is the main criteria for utilization of these materials. So that means we can increase the payload which used to be there in the commercial aircraft by having this lightweight composites. And why these composite systems, especially the fiber reinforced composites, are very important is you can see this is a graph of specific strength and specific stiffness. And if you see with specific strength, the most of the metallic titanium, magnesium, aluminum, and steel comes under this 25 specific strength to stiffness. But if you see that carbon fiber reinforced plastics in a unidirectional, that means high strength, high modulus T800 fiber reinforced composite with 60% volume fraction, unidirectional, in the longitudinal direction, the strength is almost 200 megapascal. So if that is specific strength by density, but if is in the other transverse direction, then the unit. So this is a T300 fiber, it's almost 1300. But in the case of longitudinal direction, same transverse direction, the strength is very less. Similarly, the same composite which is having a specific strength of 2000 megapascal is almost less than 1000 megapascal, maybe around 800 within distance. So the fiber orientation is very critical in the case of continuous fiber reinforced plastics to attain the properties. So normally when they are designing the parts or the components, they orient the fibers towards wherever the maximum load requirement is there. Then accordingly they design and make the composite systems. And similarly, apart from the aircrafts, similarly in the launch vehicles and satellites also, they use a lot of lightweighting because to increase the payload. For example, you can take this PSLV, very widely used launch vehicles by Indian. So here also the strap-on motors, mostly they use outer shell as the steel, because maraging steel is very widely used in the outer area because of the high temperature requirement of the solid motor case. But wherever the liquid engine is there, either in the second stage or in the fourth stage, they mostly use 7000 series aluminum alloys. That means 7075, 2219 or 2014 type of lightweight aluminum alloys is used. And many other parts they used high strength, even titanium alloys also where temperature requirements. Similarly, this has been extended to GSLV and GSLV Mark II and 3 systems also. And even the heat protection system, they use high temperature resistant silica tiles in a re-entry vehicle. So the lightweighting is required maybe in automotive sectors or in aeronautical aircrafts or in the launch vehicles and such. In all the places, weight reduction is most crucial thing. So here we can see that how the composite formation enhances the system. For example, if you take a fiberglass reinforced polyester or epoxy composite, the strength of an epoxy when it's used as such is 60 MBA, and the strength of the tensile strength of the glass fiber is 500 MBA. So once we reinforce this glass fiber into the epoxy matrix, the overall strength of the fiber, that's glass fiber reinforced epoxy composite, is almost 300 MBA. That means we can increase because as such we cannot use the fiber for the structural application. So we incorporate this fiber into a matrix and we place for high strength modification. Similarly, this laminated composite are also used to get high strength in several directions of the fiber, because unidirectional means so you get in one direction, but in the laminated sheet fibers, which is woven in different direction, we can attain strength at different properties. So glass fibers are chosen mainly because of tensile strength, stiffness, and electrical insulation properties. So these are the commonly used carbon fiber matrix, which is used for carbon fiber reinforcements, which is used for making the polymer matrix composites. Similarly, ceramic composites are very widely used in the aerospace systems because the requirement of high temperature resistance, especially in the rocket engine or in the thermal protection systems in the re-entry vehicles, nose cone leading edge, scramjet engines for future space vehicles, and so on. The systems used are carbon-carbon composites with TBC or EBC coatings, thermal barrier coatings, or SiC composites, which is more attractive, or some of the ceramic-based composite, which is developed and used for composite application. Similarly, the exhaust tail cone in the aircraft engines, which uses this weaving and 2D cloth fiber reinforced composites, which can withstand the temperature of 2573 is used. And SiC thrust chambers are made by weaving 3-axial braiding of silicon carbide fibers, and then it is infiltrated with the silicon carbide matrix and then hot pressed and fired, and which are used in high temperature test applications. So ceramic composites are very costly, and mostly it's used where the high temperature resistance is required. But in the case of polymer and metallic systems, metallic systems is widely used in the medium temperature ranges, and polymers are used mostly in the temperature and room temperature ranges. The polymer composite systems are used. And if you see the temperature stability of these composites, that's also very critical actually, and their utilizations. So as we increase the temperature, the strength also come down in the strength and stability of the composite also come down. For example, you can see the polymer can be used to, depending on the polymer, maybe 200 to 300, but the aluminum can be used almost to around 500 in very few years, mostly up to 400. And the other aluminum fiber reinforced composites are used maybe up to 600. 600 is very difficult actually, 500 and 550, but the strength of the fiber reinforced composites are higher. So you can see the pure polymer strength is very less, and the aluminum strength you have the higher range. So depending on the usage of the materials and their temperature requirements, you can choose the materials, say the polymer, aluminum fiber reinforced composites. Then it comes nickel, superalloys, ceramics, and carbon composites, which can withstand up to 2500 degree, and so on. And even these ceramic composites are used for cemented carbides, because these carbides are used in cutting tools. And when we select materials for different applications, it's very important that the criteria of selection is also very important. So I think everybody knows about the tragic end of the first luxury, one of the luxury ship, that is Titanic. So what has happened is the steel normally, which is used in the room temperature, has very high strength. But the same steel, when it is reduced to very low temperature in the freezing range, it becomes ductile to brittle. So in the metallurgy of steel, normally physical metallurgy of steel, it is called ductile to brittle transition. That means a ductile material immediately becomes brittle when the material is taken to very low temperature. So if you are not choosing the material proper, then what happens is the failures occur. So that's why when the steel which is used for the construction of the ship, when it's hit against a rock, there is ice rock, it has completely broken because it's in brittle nature and it has not able to withstand. Similarly, in the aircrafts also, the material is very critical. For example, in the lightweight materials, mostly the composites or aluminum structures are used. So so this is an aluminum body which has been used very earlier. But what has happened is there was some corrosion in between, and this corrosion has led to complete failure of the material. Similarly, you can see a fighter aircraft which is getting broken. So the selection of materials and monitoring their health during the service is very critical to avoid failures and very large tragedies. So now I will move to the metallic composite systems, which is also most widely developed for lightweighting. So I had given a lot of general ideas about lightweighting in automobiles, lightweighting in spacecraft, launch vehicles, and now slightly I think I will move into the area which we are working on, metallic composites, and how these composites are being used for lightweighting systems. I think here I will only highlight the important systems and points. So metal matrix composites possess high specific strength and modulus, replacing heavier parts, and it also possesses adhesive wear resistance, abrasive wear resistance, and because of reduced friction and braking. And it possesses good thermal conductivity and controlled thermal expansion, good impact resistance. And most widely used are aluminum, copper, magnesium, and zinc as the matrix materials. So initially, people have started developing continuous fiber reinforced composites, mostly the boron reinforced aluminum, carbon reinforced aluminum, and the SiC reinforced aluminum, mostly for defense sectors. And even SiC fiber reinforced titanium is also developed. So unidirectional bi and multi-directional layouts of aerospace structures have been developed and utilized. And niobium silver superconducting composites are developed, and it has been used for mainly for electrical conducting purpose, that is superconducting. So however, the problem with these continuous fiber composites are high cost of the fibers and manufacturing. That means the fiber cost is very high, and the manufacturing cost is also very high. So this this composites provides an anisotropic properties. That means the properties is direction, maybe the fiber oriented direction gives a very high strength, and the methods which is used to manufacture this are also limited. So the applications of the continuous fiber reinforced composites are very limited to defense and aerospace sectors, because in the case of defense and aerospace sector, the performance of the material is more important than the cost effectiveness. So mostly people look for the performance because of the costly systems people develop. So later in 80s, the development of newer short fibers, viscose, particulars reinforcement which are cheaper, and development of cost-effective methods in large scale has led to easier commercialization. And these materials provide isotropic properties. And however, the properties are inferior to continuous fiber composite, but it provides isotropic properties, which is enough for making automobile and other sectors. So the application of discontinuous fiber composite has been there for aerospace, automotive, and general engineering field. So in the case of metallic composites, sometimes people use only one type of reinforcement. Then it is called monocomposites if they use more than one type of reinforcement. Here it's an SiC particle and a carbon fiber. The direction is towards matrix, you can see. So you can only see the diameter. And so these type of composites are called hybrid composites. That means we have more than one type of reinforcements. So normally the processing techniques which is used to make this metallic composites are semi-salt processing, liquid metal casting, spray casting, infiltration, and in-situ processing techniques. And in the case of solid state, we can use powder metallurgy, diffusion bonding, pultrusion, and article milling techniques. So in the case of liquid metal processing, what we do is that we take a melting furnace, we melt the furnace, melt the alloy inside the furnace, and introduce a stirrer, mechanical stirrer, and this, once we return, some vortex is formed, and we add the particle into the vortex and it gets mixed. So we'll be mixing the particle, and then this can be made directly to components, or it can be converted to billets, and billets can be later rolled, extruded, or forged, or it can be remelted and converted into components, or it can be directly made into components by special casting as fuse casting, such as fuse or pressure die casting techniques. So this is liquid metal processing techniques. So it has easy adaptability and direct compound casting is possible. However, the limitations are controlled, the dispersion of the reinforcement, and some of the defects are casting defects, interfacial reaction, and reinforcement surface treatments are required. So this is a typical aluminum SiC composite gear housing made by liquid metal casting and sand casting. After sand casting, it looks like this, and when we machine, this is converted to a very nice gear housings and piston rings. This is used mainly in the amphibious battle tank, because again the battle tank also requires very lightweighting. You know that when there is a war, there are even heavy tanks and light combat tanks. Light combat tanks has to move faster when there is an air attack, and it has to move very faster in different terrains. Maybe it has to go in water, it has to go in hills, and all type of terrain. So they use this lightweight, high-speed tanks, which require a lot of lightweight materials. And similarly, the lightweight materials is used in the bulletproof materials also, because again the shielding also has a problem with the if you are using steel or other type of heavy materials, it can withstand, but however the overall strength of the vehicle will get increased. So they normally use this type of particle reinforced composite can withstand the bullet attacks. Similarly, the composites are used for in the case of nuclear applications also. Here it is mainly functional application. That means it is coupled with lightweighting as well as the neutron absorption. So normally, you know that when in a nuclear reactor, we want fuels. So the fuels are taken from the fuel processing plant to the nuclear reactors, as well as from the nuclear reactors back to the yard where it is to be dumped or stored. So these fuels will have some neutron radiations. And when it is taken through the public transport systems, this might start to affect the traffic as well as the people in and around. So then normally protect it with lead and various types of boron carbide and other type of materials. And normally they use this boron carbide reinforced aluminum composite as a shield for these containers, because boron carbide is a well-known neutron shielding material. So they disperse the boron carbide particles, and this has been used to make this boron carbide dispersed aluminum composites for neutron shielding applications. And this is about the coating of reinforcement to have a better dispersion in the matter. This is electrolysis coating is used, and this is under different conditions. And the next technique is on semi-solid processing. So here semi-solid processing is the processing techniques. In the case of liquid processing, we completely melt the metal above the liquid temperature. That means it's 100% liquid. But in a semi-solid, one phase, particular phase, will be in the semi-solid state, that is in the solid state, and other part is completely melted. So this is called semi-solid processing. And again, here also we can add the particle in the semi-solid semi-solid condition, and we can disperse the particle. Advantage is that high integrity near-net shape components with more uniform dispersion with minimum interfacial reaction can be made composites, and large scale production is also possible. So advantage is the dispersion of reinforcement in the nanoscale. So the third technique of processing of aluminum composites is infiltration technique. Here now what we do is instead of adding the particle in the melt, here we take a porous preform of the fiber or the particulate. Then we pour the metal placed inside a die in a hydraulic press, and once this in the liquid state, we will be applying the pressure on the ram, and it gets squeezed, and this metal infiltrates into the porous media. So it's called squeeze infiltration. So even other types of infiltration process also, vacuum and pressure coupled, and reactive metal gravity aid. So this is a porous structure of an SiC particulate systems. So here what we do is that to make this porous system, they mix. We can mix silicon carbide with some binders and some porogens. So here the inorganic salt is used as a porogen, and then we have to center it. Once centering, then we can remove the inorganic porogen salt either by leaching or by sublimation techniques or melting it out. Then you will end up with the porosity like this. So this is a hollow body, and this we can infiltrate it with the metal. You can see that this is a metal, this is a porous body, and into this pores the metal is getting infiltrated, and you can see this is an aluminum matrix SiC composite with infiltration technique. And this advantage is that it's an alloy which is having a 57 BHN, and the composite which has 147 BHN. So the metal infiltrated composite brake pads are used because of its what do you call the friction. You can have integrated the brake pads in a single system. So normally the brake pads has a front friction layer and a back pad. So here what we do is that in the case of, excuse me, I think some noise is there. I think everyone can switch off their microphones. Hello, excuse me. Some disturbance is there. Dr. Crispin, you can ask
Lavanya, please switch off your microphone. Lavanya.
Lavanya, please mute.
Okay. Crispin?
Sir, okay, sir, proceed, sir.
Oh, okay, so I will proceed. Okay. So this is a integrated brake pad. That means you have the brake back plate, and the friction layer is fixed or integrated into a single systems. And so this is a friction layer which has fibers as well as the hard particles, ceramic particles, graphite which controls, and other fillers of silica and so on. So the back plate gives the support, and the front friction layers take care of braking when it is done. And the conventional systems, normally what happens is that it delaminates the face. Some common failure is that delamination between the friction layer with the brake pad. So other areas is functionally graded armor plates can be used by this integrated, because armors are very much required in the protection, and normally they use this integrated armors where one side we can have a metallic system and other side we can have a hard reinforcement, so that which is called an integrated armor, which can have more efficiency in protecting the projectiles or the hitting of the bullets by the composites. And these armors are designed for various body armors, vehicle armors, and other types of armors. And the energy absorption mechanism is that composites coupled with ceramics and provide protection against hard projectiles. That means ceramics facing the blunts, the projectile, and the composite or the metal backing helps in arresting the fragments and projectiles. So this is which is called an integral armor, is also another. And more than that, it's a lightweighting. It is used for varieties of systems. So these are some of the MMC armors which is used. That is ceramic armors, selectively reinforced aluminum armors, which is developed by CPS technologies. Similarly, titanium and aluminum MMC armors with the 3D woven composite panels. Then M-Cube also uses MMC armors to protect vehicles from roadside bombs and direct hit. This is again a functionally graded aluminum composite which is used for armor applications. So this I think I will give a brief introduction to the FGM. I think I had last time I had given an extensive lecture on functionally graded materials, because this is one of the advanced materials. So I think I will conclude the talk with some of the FGMs, which I will go very fast. So functionally graded materials are smart materials which has a location specific gradual change in the properties, which is used, which is formed or induced through changes in the micro or macro structures. And here we can see one side you have 100% ceramics, and the other side you have a metallic phase. And these are also mainly used for in the case of lightweight structures, because in conventional approach we develop the component by the list of existing materials, but in the case of FGM approach we take inverse design procedure. That means you will be selecting the materials from the choice of various types of materials. Then we will do the reverse analysis. There's a reverse engineering, inverse design procedure, and then we will be fabricating the component by using the mixture of different materials and different processing techniques. So this large number of engineering components and tools are tools require performance vary with the location. Just like the gear of the body must be tough where its surface must be hard and wear resistant. Similarly, you take a simple knife, the edge has to be hard, whereas the elsewhere it must be strong and tough. And many of the components used in the engineering applications fall under this category. And if you see this functionally graded concepts are existing in the engineering materials, different types of natural materials, just like bone and even the wood. So in the case of bone, the outer shell is very hard, which takes a load of your body, and the inside it's porous, which acts as a functional region where it generates a lot of body fluids. Similarly, if you take a wood also, this is a bamboo cross sections. The outside is having a high strength fibers which takes a load, and interior is a soft tissue which acts as a region for the growth as well as for the transpiration of the minerals, water, and other materials from the root to the top of the leaf. So this is a case of a functionally graded concepts in the nature. But the Japanese scientists in mid-80s, they are looking for advanced thermal barrier systems for re-entry space vehicles. So what they thought that when the spacecraft is entering from the outer orbit to the Earth's that is atmosphere. So normally it comes with a speed of Mach 18. That means almost 20,000 kilometers per hour. That is, you can visualize how much. Normally our car speed may be something around 60 to 100, 120 kilometers we normally go. But you can see the speed at which, and when it is coming into the Earth's orbit, and when it is coming inside the atmosphere especially, there is a collision with the air molecules which leads to an increase in the temperature. So once the temperature is increased, then the temperature may go up to 1300 to 1600 degrees C. So if it is a normal metallic structures or the polymeric or other structures, it just melted down. So to protect it, normally they go for a ceramic based materials. So what happened in the Space Shuttle disaster, where Kalpana Chawla and other astronauts died, is that the thermal shielding tiles which is kept has delaminated and it's completely melted down when the re-entry has taken place. That's why. So here the reason is here you can see that. So in a conventional thermal barrier system or thermal barrier coating, you can see there is a thermal stress at the surface. So you have a cladding between a substrate and the ceramic tile. So there's because of this thermal stress, cracking and spallation takes place. But if this integrated advanced thermal barrier coating with the compost integrated structure is there, then the thermal stress is smooth, so that it cannot delaminate. That's why people have started using this functionally graded structures for advanced heat shielding materials. I think I will. It's again the same process which is used for MMCs, powder metallurgy diffusion, carburizing, infiltration. All the process can be used for composite infiltration technique I had already discussed. So one of the other technique is the centrifugal casting, where you have a mixture of composite which is poured into a rotating mold, leads to the formation of two different layers, that is particle enriched and particle depleted layers. And the particle enriched, and this is a furnace and this centrifugal casting machine. So this rotating spinning mold, and once the spinning mold is in the horizontal axis, it's called horizontal centrifugal casting. And if the axis of rotation is in the vertical axis, then it's called a vertical centrifugal casting machine. So once you centrifugally cast it, because of the variation in the density, if the density is lesser than the reinforcement, it goes towards the interior periphery, and the density is higher, then it goes to the outer periphery. So aluminum graphite composite has graphite density is lower, so it goes to the interior periphery, and silicon, which density is higher, so it goes to outer periphery. So you can have a functionally graded composite. So in the case of aluminum SiC system, the SiC particle segregate towards the outer periphery because of the higher density of SiC, 3.2 gram per cc than that of aluminum, which is 2.7. However, the graphite 2 gram per cc and silicon, not silicon carbide, silicon, the density is 2.3, so it gets segregated towards the interior periphery. So these are some of the comments which I had made, and the structure where you can see the presence of particle towards the outer region. And this in turn increases the volume fraction of the particles towards outer region is around 30, and this increases hardness. That means outer periphery has a hardness of almost very close to 115 heat conditions, whereas the interior is around 115 BHM. So this is in the case of an aluminum A3, there is nickel systems. So in aluminum nickel systems with aluminum 20 nickel, we are able to get better functionally graded structures. But here you don't have the second phase, so there is no segregation. But in the case of 30 and 40, you have the volume fraction is so high, so the centrifugal casting is not effective in dispersal. So this is also a centrifugally cast primary silicon and MG2S systems. So this is a typical brake rotor disc, centrifugally cast disc, which has a particle concentration in the braking region. So the volume fraction is very high in the braking region, and this enhances the hardness, tensile strength, modulus of elasticity, and compressive strength. So that means the properties in the braking region is very high. And once you apply the brake and this brake pad comes in contact with the rotating disc, this exerts a high compressive force and friction force on this. So the presence of silicon carbide and it increases the stiffness as well as the wear resistance. So your braking can be there, but the main requirement is the light weighting. You can use an aluminum composite. So the disc which is used is 1/3 the weight of the cast iron disc which can be used. Similarly, the commercial alloys also can be used to make the functionally graded composite, just like 390 alloys. So this is a centrifugal cast alloys which shows higher primary silicon towards the interior region. So this can be used to make the cylinder liners in the automotive parts, apart from the brake rotor disc. Similarly, the pistons also can be used to make pistons also can be made by functionally graded aluminum systems. So this mold and this piston which is made by centrifugal casting technique, you can see that these areas have very high hardness. So apart from the centrifugal casting, we can use sequential casting also. That means we have two layers, one above the other. We can pour it and make this sequential. So the one area we can have a very hard alloy, and another area we can have a soft alloy. So you can see the hardness of soft alloy is around 70 pH, and the hardness of 3/9 hard alloy is 110. That is in the case of as-cast condition. Similarly, the gradient slurry disintegration technique also is used to make the composite. Here, what they do is they disperse the composite and they allow it to settle. Then they the bottom bore furnace is used, and the initial casting will have rich in particle, and the second one will have very less particle region. And similarly, the spray deposition technique can be also used to make the composite. Spray deposition is here. What we can do is that we can have a substrate into which we have the melt. Then we have an atomizer. The melt is atomized, and there is a ceramic injection is there. So what happens is that the ceramic particles are injected along with the atomizers, and it gets deposited on the substrate, and it leads to the formation of a functionally graded composite structure, which can be high. Similarly, we can use the plasma spraying also can be used to make this type of FGM structures. So this is an nickel alumina functionally graded structure formed by the plasma technique. And another technique is the laser deposition techniques. Here what that is that you have a substrate over which there is a laser beam which is moving on, which melts the surface, and there is an injection of the powder takes place, and this powder get penetrated inside and it gets dispersed by the laser deposition. So this leads to form the particle. This is a top surface, and this is a cut cross section. We can see this is a graded formation of silicon carbide particles in a titanium 6 aluminum 4 vanadium composite system. Similarly, the laser cladding also can be used. That means you coat the substrate A with B, then you pass the laser, and this gets melted and get mixed. Similarly, the B can be again melted. So that means a layer of B, richer in B will get increased, and finally you will end up with a layer complete with B. So this is also possible. So these are some of the lightweight materials, lightweight metallic composites, lightweight functional materials, and I will just end up with the engineering application of metallic composite with both automotive and aerospace systems. If you see that MMC is very widely used in ground transport and for then in electronics and thermal management as well as in aerospace sectors. And these are some of the components which had made it list: aluminum graphite automotive components, SiC composites, aluminum FGM components, the rotor disc, gear housings, and armor plates, which I had mentioned in detail in the presentations. And in the case of ground transportation, cylinder liners are used in the automobiles. Automotive brake rotor discs are being developed. Brake pads are also developed and used in high-speed trials. Then titanium boride intake and exhaust valve, which is used in the Toyota vehicles. Similarly, the drive shafts have been developed by aluminum composites, and all are mostly either by aluminum or titanium composites, and mainly the lightweighting is a major criteria. Similarly, MMC automotive components. So the cylinder liners and pistons are also developed by KIST and Hyundai, and it is used. Similarly, the connecting rods are developed. Aluminum graphite composite engine blocks are developed and used for different applications. Similarly, the International Nickel Company in Canada, they also develop different types of aluminum cylinder liners and rotor discs by sand casting techniques. This is aluminum 8 silicon 10 SiC 5 graphite hybrid composite components. So in the case of rotor disc, aluminum SiC rotor discs are developed and used in the German high-speed trains. So there is this Saab Wabco is a German company which developed this rotor disc, and is used in the high-speed trains because to reduce the bogie weight. So you have almost 8 discs in a single system itself, single bogie itself. We can see how it can be utilized to control the speed or reduce speed, or making your train to get stopped by using the lightweight rotor disc. And similarly, the composites are used in the recreational parts, just like bicycle frame, horseshoes, baseball, skating shoes, and boat shafts, and so on. And apart from the space for automotive, even we can see that aluminum MMCs are used in conductor application. Again, Here also the requirement is lightweight. So the normal the transmission lines which come brings the power to your home or from the power stations to the transformers. It uses the aluminum conductors, which has a steel core at the center and around which you have the aluminum. But this has a higher weight than that of the aluminum composite cores. So that means to increase the transmission between the lines. So that means you can reduce the weight. You can have more wires and transmission lines can be there. So that you can have a reduction in weight between the transmission lines by utilizing the aluminum textile fiber composites. So here what they did, the 3M company made this textile fiber reinforced composites. Ashish, hey, excuse me. So there was some disturbance. So similarly, the wear protections with the electroless nickel composites are also made, because this electroless nickel composites provide better surface wear resistance by dispersion of boron carbide, silicon carbide, silicon nitride, and so on. So similarly, MMCs are being used in aerospace application mainly for lightweighting. Here you can see that Space Shuttle Orbiter boron aluminum tubes, P100 6061 aluminum high gain antenna waveguides are used. Hubble space telescopes, it is used in Hubble space telescopes. Cast SICP aluminum attachments, multi-inlet fittings for truss nodes, cast fitting braced graphite aluminum tubes, discontinuous reinforced aluminum composite MMCs are used in the electronic packaging systems. And similarly, in space shuttle orbiters, also 6061 boron 50 volume fraction fiber reinforced composites are used by diffusion bonding techniques. And similarly, in the fighter aircrafts, the ventral fins, it's made of 6092 SiC composites. All this is mainly to reduce the weight and increase the performance. Similarly, aluminum SiC composites are used for thermal management materials in the space shuttles and other even the satellite systems. And similarly, the 6092 SiC composites are used in the aero engines as an fan assist guide wings. So here the main criteria is to improve the resistance of erosion, foreign object damage over graphite epoxy and other types of composites. Because in the engine, these two exit and entry waveguides, normally the temperature experience are very less in compared to the central core. So they can use lightweight aluminum-based composite material. And this is used by Pratt & Whitney in 4XS engines and Boeing in 777 aircrafts, which is this engine is used. Similarly, MMC gas turbine components are used in the aero engine, mostly in the fighter aircrafts by USA. And aluminum A380 uses almost 20% of glare composites. So this is glass fiber reinforced composites, which features in front fairing, upper fuselage structures, ground structures, and side panels. So the upper sections, the glare laminated composites are made up of 4 or more 0.38 mm thick sheets of aluminum alloy and glass fiber reinforced resins. So this glare composite offers weight savings between 15 to 30% of aluminum alloy, along with very good, very high resistance alloys. So here this is an A380 aircraft which uses this glare composites. So similarly, the potential applications of aircrafts are in F-15, F-17, F-16, and a lot of aircrafts and air propulsion systems, these aluminum composites are being used. So among the different systems used, aluminum composites are the number of MMCs used are aluminum is very widely used when compared to that of titanium. And similarly, the reinforcement, the SiC and alumina is very widely used. So to summarize, So MMCs, FGMs, and nanocompounds show very great potential for various engineering applications in the field of automotives, aerospace, defense, and general engineering because of the lightweight in nature and high performance. The future direction of the MMCs are functionally graded composites, nanocomposites, in situ composites, presence of new types of dispersoids, tailoring of the matrices, and eco-friendliness are the major criteria for the development of new functionally graded and the lightweight composites. So I acknowledge our director members, my mentors, Dr. BC Pai, Dr. R. M. Blay, our present and former group members, Dr. Manu, Dr. Jay Kumar, Deepa, Rashmi, Jarin, Arsha, Agil, and Vaishak, and the organizers of faculty development program, especially the faculty, staff, and students of St. Joseph Institute of Technology, Chennai, the conveners, Dr. Arun and Dr. Savitri, and especially thank my friend Dr. Crispin Das, professor of St. Joseph College, for inviting me. I thank all the participants and delegates who has been patiently listening to my talk for almost 1 hour 15 minutes. Thank you very much. I think I can answer a couple of questions. Thank you very much. So, Dr. Crispin.
Sir?
So I request,
Yeah, please.
sir, request the participant, if you need any queries, so please post your questions in the chat box.
So I think in the talk somebody has asked about the 350 or 380 Airbus. This one. So here the utilization of carbon fiber reinforced is mainly lightweighting. Lightweighting is not only the fuel efficiency, it also increases the payload. So that means the passenger load as well as other cargo can be increased if you are having lightweighting. So also it reduces the total fuel efficiency of the aircraft. So it's a both way of benefits if you use this type of advanced composites. I think not see any much questions.
Sir, someone has asked the research activities in MNC, sorry, in MMC going in CSIR.
Okay. So CSIR mostly we are working on aluminum matrix composites for both automotive and aerospace applications with the different user agencies. Mainly as I had shown some of the brake rotor disc, brake pads, cylinder liners, and other systems for defense and nuclear applications, which we are developing and supplying to these people, both automotive as well as aerospace. I think some of the examples which I had shown are mostly from my work. That is either it may be rotor disc, cylinder liners, pistons, in the case of automotive, and other thermal management systems and other composites, just like which is used in the tank and other things is made at CSIR. Mostly we are working on aluminum and magnesium based composites and their components for both automotive and aerospace. So any other questions?
I think
Sorry, there was some disturbance in between.
Okay, no issues, sir.
As well as from the audience.
no,
Okay.
no problem, sir. I think there is no questions from the chat box.
One more question is there, sir, I think. Mr. Karthik has asked that please give a small hint about high nitrogen stainless steel.
Okay. I am not working in the steel, so I cannot able to comment on this much about high nitrogen. Sorry for that, actually.
Okay,
It's okay,
okay,
sir.
sir.
Thank you. Hello, sir.
Oh, Dr. Crispin, I think if there are no more questions,
Sir, how about the degradation and reusability of life of polymer composites when going
okay.
for lightweight applications?
Yeah. So here, so degradation will be there because one of the disadvantages is that after some time of service, so this epoxy or polyester, all these matrices get degraded, but fiber you can have the strength. So degradation, but it has a limited lifetime. Still, the aircraft is there, so it's not an issue. But periodically, they monitor the health and they change the common structures. As such, there is no issues. But the other issue is that biodegradation. That means reusability is difficult actually. So, but if you use an aluminium, steel, or anything, you can melt it and you can use it again for common. But polymer, fiber reinforced plastics, as such, it's very difficult to use it. You can remove the resin, and sometimes people extract the fibers and they are using for secondary purpose. That can be done. But matrix, polysetting, thermosetting, we cannot do anything actually. So otherwise, there's no issue. So, but polymer composites are very widely used because of the low cost and they are lightweight in various sectors, as I said, mainly in the exterior, low temperature structural applications.
Sir, I would like to ask a question regarding the aluminium inside composites. Which are the reinforcements can be added for the further research?
That means aluminium in steel composite.
Inside composites, which are the reinforcements can be added later for the research, for the further research?
No. I think in situ composite means the composite in which the particles are not added externally, but it is generated inside. And very widely used is developed is titanium boride and titanium carbide reinforced composite in the case of aluminium. And apart from that, even they use this primary silicon MgL2 for spinal. Even silicon carbide is also even generated in situ alumina. That is a very widely used actually. What that does is that make very fine air atmosphere, the oxygens, and then they impinge into the melt and they oxidize and make it. But the difficulty is in controlling the particle size. And if you are one of the newer area coming is that if you are able to generate nanoparticles dispersed in very low percentage inside the aluminium matrix or a magnesium matrix is a newer area which we can think of. So that's one of the area. But if you want to see the reinforcement, we have to explore the thermodynamics, reactivity of the aluminium, stability of this particle with the aluminium, and see. So this you have to go through the literature and see for the newer reinforcement generations. But you can see that alumina is very widely used, and the challenge is that even the existing in-situ particles, if you convert to a nanoparticles, even with 0.5 or 1%, then the dispersion will be better and you can have a proper dispersed composite with higher strength. Even the 5, 10 or 15 volume fraction is not required. Even 1 to 2% is more than enough to attain those properties.
Thank you, sir.
So good afternoon. This is Shaktivel from SRM IST.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. So this is, my question is, any recent research going on bio-based polymer from the renewable feedstock?
Yeah, a lot of research is going on. So you know that bio-based compost means there are two things are there. Either your matrix polymer can be bio-based, or your reinforcement can be bio-based. In case of reinforcement, so one of the well-known is the sisal fiber, and a lot of plant fibers are being used. And in Kerala, we are rich in coconut fibers, and this coconut fiber reinforced composites are very widely used in different types of composites. Not the much load-bearing material, but the sisal and other types of composites are used even the automotive and other parts. So, do and see the BMW, the dashboards, they have also started using this fiber reinforced natural composites. But the case of matrix, I think we need some chemistry to derive the. So rubber is one of the natural matrix which you can use. Apart from that, you can generate a lot of epoxies from even soybean oil or even from neem and various types of natural extracts made and which can be converted to synthetic matrices. So one side is a matrix formation, which can be a biodegradable one is the utilization of the reinforcements. Lot of plant fibers can be used, but a lot of studies is going on. I know in Tamil Nadu, so many engineering colleges, many institutes they are using. The thing is that identifying a proper application and utilizing for different application is more important. Thank you. I think I have.
Any feedstock like accrued or bale fruit research is going on, or
Which one? Fruit?
that is extraction of matrix polymer
Yeah.
from the feedstock, namely accrued or bale fruit, something like that.
No, that I don't know in detail about the types of. I think you have to go and see into the literature. But I know that this soybean oil is very good for making the synthetic epoxy polymers. Similarly, the cardinal and these type of materials for making phenolic resins and so on. So these are very commonly used synthetic resins used. And you know that rubber is a natural polymer which can be used directly for composites, making rubber reinforced. That's fiber reinforced rubbers are. It also has its limitation. But for epoxy, you have to see which are. But one of the thing is that even the biomass has to be, the availability has to be in large quantity. That's the one criteria. Second, cost of the biomass if you're going to use as the epoxy is also very cheaper. So this is also a main thing when you are choosing different types of biomass for the matrix.
Okay. Can you suggest any source where we can find any related researches going on from the feedstock? Any source?
No, a lot of review papers is there. I think if you mail to me, I can send some of the papers on this natural fiber reinforced composites by my known friends who has published it, where you can get a lot of. My email ID is tpdrajan@gmail.com. You can just mail, sir, so that I think if you want, I can share it. Is there in the first slide.
TPD Rajan.
tpdrajan@gmail.com.
Hello.
Yeah. So
TPD Rajan
@gmail.com.
@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Hello.
No,
Am I audible, sir, for you?
Yeah.
Hello. Okay, maybe I'll get it from the organizers because I couldn't hear you.
tpdrajan@gmail.com.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. Thanks a lot.
Raja sir, we can end.
Sir, we can wind up the session, sir. So thank you, sir. Thank you behalf of our Department of Mechanical Engineering, St. Joseph Institute of Technology. So we thank you very much for your wonderful, informative and effective sessions. I hope the participants will benefited regarding the composites and FGM and the manufacturing process and all the applications also. So thank you, sir. Once again, in future we will have some collaboration so that it will be useful in our college, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you, Dr. Chris.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.